happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. If you're watching this on Saturday, chances are your Saturday did not go quite as well as you had hoped. Gonna let some folks get in the chat. We got the fan over here buzzing along. Whew, it is hot down here in the swamp. Man, no joke. Let's see. Goodness. There we go. Little improvised air conditioning. All right, so what I wanted to talk about in this chat is basically when fast isn't fast enough. And one of the things that I was going to focus on for this chat was the video that I put up of Nick's car versus Chandelier at the drag strip. And the reason why I was so excited about that run was, well, the fact that you never really get a chance to see basically the flyby when there's a car that is significantly faster one versus the next. Nick's car and Nick as a driver are both very consistent. So it was a very even race in the fact that both cars were going to be very consistent. Randy's in. What's up, Randy? Doing good, brother? So one of the things that comes up a lot, I get a lot of questions about, how fast will this make my car? How much power will it pick up? What is the absolute gain for the mods that you're going to do to these cars? And it's not just the Mopar stuff. It's all of it. I get questions on Chevy stuff, Ford stuff, obviously the Mopar stuff, a little bit of everything. But what I wanted to illustrate in that video, and that was actually our second pass. We had made one pass. That was a hot lap pass that we had made. Interestingly enough, they were identical passes to the first pass, with him running a 996, me running a 1050. So basically, what you're looking at in that video is the true difference between a half second in the quarter mile. And keep in mind that I treat him pretty good, but it's not like his light was that bad either. I mean, it was, basically within the noise. We left at the same time. As a matter of fact, I wish I could get my hands on the video. A friend of mine videotaped that pass, and in that video, it looks like we left at the exact same time, even though, the clock would, say that I left before he did. But obviously it wasn't enough to make up the difference. And that's really not the point here. The idea is to try to illustrate the difference, the real world difference between what is in essence a 999 pass, a 99 pass versus a true 1050 pass. Not a high 1050, a 1050, which that pass was. The gizmo in the car said it was a 10.4. It was off by just a little bit, and the time slip was a 10.50 at right at or just under 129 miles per hour. So when guys are asking, how do they make their car faster? What's the difference between what's the difference between a 10-second car and a 9-second car? There is just as much difference between my car and a car that runs an 11.0 as there is between the difference of what that 9-second car ran, that high 9-second car ran against mine. It is so far not even a close race that it's like you cannot put them in the same category. And keep in mind, these cars are being run in density altitudes that are around 2,600, 2,500, 2,400, whatever it was. Hot, muggy, all of that. All of these cars you can take 4/10 out of all of these cars, and that's what their real fast number is. 940 for his car would not be a problem, and this car in real low DAs runs 10 teens all the time. Certainly is not a 9-second car. But in that video, you'll see him coming around me, and I even call it out. There he comes, and I can see him. Basically we started out like this, and I was able to hold him off for about the first 3 gears. And then after that, he's reeling me in like a 2-pound trout and then is gone out of my life. But it needs to be made clear that, obviously, yes, that's a modified red eye. But it's not like my car is 100% stock. It's got a gear and it's got a little bit of a tune and it's on 93 octane, but that doesn't matter. What that represents for that red eye is just basically a pulley and fuel, and that's really about it. Not to mention that car is heavy, and Nate ain't no small dude either. So that's exactly what you're up against. And when you see a car go around you like that, it's funny when you see the time slip, because on the street, that is an absolute runaway. But again, at the drag strip, it's only half a second. And when I say only half a second, that's what half a second faster looks like when you're talking about 2 cars that are considered to be considerably fast. Again, with my car in those conditions running 1050s and his car running high 990s. Basically an exact half second between the cars. So if you ever wondered what it looks like, that's what it looks like to run against a car that quick. So let me catch up with you guys. Kobe saying, "Sup, B, we did a transmission relearn and it worked till the car gets too hot." How you doing? Doing good, man. Sean saying 9s are the new 11s for sure. 10s are the new 12s. And that's basically the fun place right now for a modified car. And what that basically means is back in the day, 12s were considered to be a very strong, very hard running street car. If you had something that ran 12s, you were going to be hard to beat, regardless of what venue you're in. Nowadays, 12-second cars, stock cars run 12s, and that's stock NA cars at that. Nowadays, you're talking about cars that are running 10s like Hellcats, which are now kind of the fun cars to play around with on the street, which is real bizarre when you think about it. Brandon saying, "What's up, B? What's up, man?" Slash saying hello. Speed Freak saying, "Hey, B, was at Atco last night. A Tesla Plaid ran a 960 at a $147. Quickest street car overall, modded Hellcats. Crazy." Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't go quicker. So far, that Tesla Plaid has been seen and known to run 920s at 150 miles an hour. So that car probably was running at about half charge. And no kidding, would run those kind of numbers all night with no issues whatsoever. Not to kill a future video, but it almost speaks to the obsolescence of an internal combustion engine at that point. When you've got a car that will run low 9s at 150 miles an hour, the mile an hour is what kills me on that. It's not the ET, because ET is funny. There's every way in the world to get ET. You can leave super hard and trail off on the big end, which is what the older Teslas did, which is what a lot of the older big block hot rods did. You could leave soft and then hit real hard on the back half of the track. Lots of turbo cars do that. This new Tesla Plaid does both. It is absolutely a monster in terms of performance, and it's just where we're at now. Now you can say, well, what about the price and all this other stuff? Look, man, this is a game of big bank take little bank. You cannot talk about money in this game. Sorry, the second money comes into the conversation's over with. That is to say that ain't no crying in drag racing, and you can't holler sour grapes. And that's exactly what money is at this point. So the Tesla, it is what it is. It's going to be the bully on the block unless Dodge comes out with something that'll hang with it. But I just don't know that that's going to be the case. And at $130,000, It is a freaking steal at $130,000. You might say, yeah, it's a lot of money, $130,000. Yeah, it is a whole lot of money. But look at what you got to put into a car to run those types of times consistently, reliably. Oh, yeah. And, I don't know, have air conditioning, a really nice radio, ride smooth, all of that kind of stuff, the little creature comforts that kind of mean something. Yeah, you got to be able to do that too. So, $130,000, a lot of guys have spent a lot more than that and have gone slower. I'll just put it to you that way. Chuck saying, hello, what's up, Chuck? Peter saying, for my 2019 Scat Pack, I like to have the same cam spec as Rob's Scat Pack. What is the spec for that cam? That is a custom grind cam, and those specs are proprietary. Frederick's saying, what's cooking, B? What's up, man? Got the bald guy with the shades and the arm flex. Let's see. Brandon's saying, took my car to the track last night for the first time since I did my pulley swap. Had trouble hooking my first few runs, but ended up with a 1029 at 138, an 1150 DA, 154 60 foot, hoping for nines. You can do much better with that 60 foot. Let's see. Depending on what kind of tires you're running, you can definitely get a lot better than that 154. You should be in the 140s based on your mile an hour. Like every time. Ryan saying, sup, B? Big saying, damn, shredded my serpentine belt on a pass last night, overheated like hell before I could get back to the pits. Pretty sure the pipe spilled, only thing that kept me from destroying my heads. I can see that, yep. God, I bet those fans were screaming too. How did you shred a belt? Hopefully you get that worked out quick, brother. Chris is saying, would I benefit switching from a 6.1 block to a Hellcat 6.2 block? No, you wouldn't. You'd be better off going with like a just a generic stroker for your 6.1, like a 417, 426 or something along those lines. I would certainly recommend getting the heads ported and that intake at least cleaned up, Extrude hunting would be a better idea, but yeah, you'd be in good shape with that. Again, I probably wouldn't go through the headache of going that route. You can get a stroker block that'll do better than that 6.2 would. Unless you were just planning on throwing a ton of boost at it, and then in that case, you'd still be able to benefit from displacement with what you've got. And your heads are pretty good, so I wouldn't worry about those. Let's see. Oh, KDC saying, what up, Mason? Just got his 5.7 back with that Joker cam, street tune only, and the theater is something else. Can't wait for the dyno tune, and my shop loves it. Very nice. Glad you like it. Yeah, that cam sounds really good. It's a fun cam. Everybody with a 5.7 that has that cam really enjoys it. Exo's asking, what about the new Mopar Turbo Inline 6? Haven't heard much about it lately. There was, I should say, a lot of talk about Dodge introducing it would have been a twin cam inline 6 turbo as a power alternative for the trucks that may not end up coming through fruition, considering that Stellantis is now really focusing more on EVs. Not that EVs can take over the truck segment. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon, if ever. I just don't see it. But I really wish that they would start moving more towards that inline 6. That would be freaking awesome. Let's see. Oh, Chuck's saying the Track Pack Challenger is 134 grand, but not street legal. That is true. 1,200 horsepower. Not sure of the track numbers. It runs 7s. Mid to high 7s, actually, with suggested setups. The Copo and the Cobra Jet run roughly the same. Brennan saying run an MTET Street R's. Got you. Run those things at about 20 to 22 psi. Cody's asking what RPM do I leave at? 1,500. And why sport mode and not track mode? I don't like track mode. I think sport mode, that little bit of slip helps the car through the gears. Track mode hits it a little bit hard, and I haven't seen a benefit in running track mode. So, in fact, the car went just a shade slower in track mode than it did in sport mode. But track mode is fun on the street. It makes it kind of snappy. So, this depends on what you want to do. But mine stays in sport mode. I've got my driver command torque fairly aggressive with my car, so it's pretty punchy no matter what. So I don't ever even put my car in track mode anymore. Let's see, but I do like the little bit more slip. Again, about maybe 300s is about what it picks up, 3 to 400s. So I was asking, how hard would you stall out an RT Challenger to get it to hook half decent? So I think what you're really asking me is how much stall would I run on a tire like these to get it to really hook? A lot of that has to do with gear ratio more than stall. And it depends on what you're talking about. Are you talking about a truck or a car? Either way you go, Circle D, look, take this with a grain of salt because I have yet to run this converter, but I know that Matt over at Mo's Performance really likes this converter. If you got a truck, there's a 4,200 RPM converter that apparently acts pretty nice on the street. It's got pretty decent street manners. I would probably say go that route, but I would also suggest a 370 gear to go along with it. And it's going to take some significant transmission tuning to get the thing to act right. So just know that coming into it. But I would gear it and stall it, take advantage of both sides of that equation, and go from there. The other side to that is that there was a 3,200 RPM converter from Paramount. I know, they're transmissions, but a lot of guys swore by that too. And I think Circle D also had a 32 or a 3,600 RPM converter. That's kind of the going rate for converters. The trick is, at least what some of the guys have done, is they don't let the trans lock out in first and second gear. That will make driving the car a little bit weird because you will never feel that 1-2 shift under partial throttle. It just, and when it shifts, you'll hang the thing on the stall of the converter, so it just goes, and when it goes in the third. If you're used to driving a car with a converter, it just kind of is what it is, and you just know that you have to give it more gas to get the thing to go. Where a lot of guys, and this is why it's so hard to put together camshafts for these modern street cars, because a lot of guys don't like having to kick the thing as hard as they do, so to speak, to get it to move. But the idea nowadays is you just throw more driver command torque at it, give them a more aggressive torque converter, and just walk them through the difference in driving experience. But a lot of guys still don't like it, and they want it to be a little bit more street friendly. But if you want the thing to launch, you got to throw converter at it, you got to throw gear at it, might as well throw a cam at it. There's a lot of things you can do to really get the car to get out of the hole. You'd be surprised. You pick up, when it comes to cams and Mopars especially, pick up a lot more torque than you might think. It's really not all about the horsepower number, it's about the torque curve itself. And that's really where these cams, the custom grind stuff especially, come into play. By the way, I've seen all of the HRT grinds. I would still highly suggest to you to go with a custom grind. They've got some good grinds, don't get me wrong, but in fact, one of them looks eerily familiar, at least with about half of the specs on that sheet. But yeah, I would say that you're still better off going with a custom grind cam to complement that package. XO saying, in literally the last 30 days, TFL has overheated a new Ford and a new GM truck. Very good advertisement for the heavier Ram not having the same problem. Yeah, I heard about that. In fact, I saw that pop up on my feed and I hadn't watched it yet. But the Ram Ram does really well in most testing. It's not always the fastest, and it's not always the whateverest, but it always seems to do really well all the way around, and it's a good looking truck, and they're always a little bit more fun to drive. And again, it's funny because if you look at the numbers, a lot of guys really get into horsepower, torque, and performance numbers with trucks. I'm more into the driving experience, and my tradesman is a riot to drive. So, all things considered, I should say. So saying it's 18-inch slicks running Hoosiers. I spin bad at 2200 RPM, tried 15, and it felt a little lackluster. Check your burnout. Make sure that you are not doing your burnout in the water box. One of the biggest mistakes I see at the drag strip is guys doing their burnout in the water box. It doesn't work like that, especially not with a radial. You need to get them wet, do a 4-foot rollout, and then light them up. Because there's no way you should be spinning on a set of Hoosiers. Also, make sure you're running, well, you say an 18-inch slicks. Are they radial slicks or are they bias ply? If the radials, don't go below 20 PSI. That's not going to help you. I mean, dude, we're running on ET Street R's, we're running 154, 155, 60 foots in Chris's car, full weight, by the way, and it's, I mean, full weight. That car's about 150 pounds heavier than Chandelier over here. But that thing will knock down high 150s like it's clockwork, and that's on the 305 45 17 ET Street R's. So if you're running Hoosiers, my experience with these Hoosiers is that they're a lot more forgiving, and they hook when the Mickey Thompsons don't hook. So depending on which tire you're running, I can kind of steer you in the right direction, man. I just got to know exactly what tire you're running. But now that I know you're on 18s, I can tell you that that's about where you're going to want to be in terms of pressure. If 1500 felt a little bit shy and you're spinning at 22, something's going on there. Tux saying, hey, B-Max, what's up, Tux? Sean saying, what up, B? Got the arm flex. I like it. I really appreciate this helpful info on these Mopars. Happy to. The XO is saying also shows that turbo gas engines, even with EV help, are not reliable under real truck conditions. I would have a tendency to agree with that, only because everybody that I've talked to that does any real work with their truck. I'm not talking about commuter stuff. I'm not talking about the playing around with it stuff. The hot rod and stuff. I'm just talking about any actual real work. Nobody that I know of went with any of the turbo variants of any of the trucks. That's the Nissan guys have steered clear of that, that diesel, that even the small diesel, they're staying away from that. Some of them are. So there's that. I don't really know what to say positive, unfortunately, for the EcoBoost trucks. They run good, they're fast, they do a lot of cool things, but again, they don't offer up a driving experience that's altogether entertaining the way that the NA trucks do. And I don't know that they do better. And I think that maybe some of these tests you guys are seeing are proving that out. So the thing is I just don't, I'm really racking my brain. I don't know of anybody that does any like towing, anybody that has like a truck that they're using to tow a race car. All of those are 5.0 Fords, or they're 5.7 Dodges, or like a 6.2 or a 5.3 Chevy. Nobody is messing with the turbo variants at all. So saying I got the 3000 installed from Circle D coming in, and just got the 392 intake installed. Nice, with the Joker cam in. Nice, runs great now. Traction is becoming a problem. Fun as hell, great cam. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. Like I say, it is a fun ass cam, man. I'm not knowing what you're up to with that 392 intake. If you're running a window switch, I highly recommend it. And set your window switch for your car at about 5,200, 5,400 RPM. you should be in good shape there. No, you'll have fun with that cam. I know that again, everybody that I've talked to that has that cam enjoys it. Texas saying he saw the drag racing videos and amazing, especially with headphones. Yes, it's always better with headphones. Kobe's asking, what are the front wheels that I have? Those are Ford Star D5s that I'm running. That's the setup on the cars, Ford Star D5s. So there's the rear, there's the front, right there. And the tires are SR, Mickey Thompson SR 20, what the hell are they? 28. If you just get a hold of this, call Mickey Thompson and ask for the ones that work for the Hellcats. That's the exact one you want. And I run mine at about, I usually keep them on the car at about 80 to 85 PSI. And yes, you heard that correctly. Get the ones that are rated for the much higher PSI and get the high PSI valve stems when you order the tires, or get them from your, just get them online, get them wherever you can. You want 80 plus PSI valve stems. Really, there's 100 PSI that you would prefer to have on there. Let's see. Oh, so's saying looking to get ET Street R's, but I was around 22 PSI on the air. I'll have to head back there and get a ticket to show my buddy lent me his set for the weekend. 22 is good on those tires typically. That's what most of us run with the ET Street R's, and I mean, assuming that the track prep is decent, they will hook normally. Now, they're not going to be as good as the Hoosiers, but as long as the track prep is okay, and as long as you have enough tread on the ET Street R's. I've got a set back over here. I recently swapped. I've got a couple of these D5 sets that I use. Oh, shit. Well, that was pretty funny. Hang on a second. Earthquake. Timeout. Hang on. Oh, man. That was pretty good. Hold, please. Are we back? There we go. Love it when that happens. I've got a set of the ET Street R's. What we found with the ET Street R's is when they get down to the wear bars, they're done. That compound is done. What's funny about them is that it's almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. They will go from being just fine, and then they just start acting an ass. The one thing about the Hoosiers, I'm talking about the DBRs in particular, when I'm doing the tire comparison, I know that the DBRs are technically not street legal, but it's kind of the direct line of sight competitor to that ET Street R right now. They're just going to be a little bit more forgiving overall. So, got a setup there that I had on a set of rake loose that I'm actually selling right now. If anybody needs a set of drag wheels, I've got a set of rake loose that I'll let go cheap. So's asking, do they want to walk around on you? All of these types of tires will get a little bit of a wiggle, but not too much. Where you start really getting the wiggles is with bias plies. The Hoosiers will wiggle a little bit, but not too bad. I've had this setup behind me. This setup behind me has been to 150 miles an hour probably, I don't know, 10 times, maybe 11, maybe 9, but somewhere around like pivot number about 10 times. They've been to 140 miles an hour though. How many passes do I have on these tires? I've got, say, 30 passes on them right now, maybe along with 40 real hard street, or along with 10 real hard street hits. 50 times with these tires, at least. And that's because I've made about 40 or 50 passes with these tires, and they always run it out to about $140. And the reason why I do is I'm collecting data normally. So I would say of the right now, roughly 30 passes on these tires, 40 if you count street hits and roll racing. I would say that they're more stable than a bias ply ET Street R by far. And I would never run a bias ply in a car this heavy. And so the amount of wiggle that you get out of these tires is the most that I would ever notice. One thing I will tell you is that they're significantly more stable than what you may give them credit for. When I'm running these tires on the car, just driving the thing around, I don't really notice a handling difference. I mean, I'm not trying to carve corners, don't get me wrong, but it's never made me feel like there was any level of danger or worry or anything like that. I mean, you're just kind of cruising down the road, going down the highway. It just goes down the highway and actually rides kind of nice because they've got a little bit more sidewall and they're a little bit more of a forgiving tire than the 20s. Tux is like, you dropped your camera. Yeah, I did. Gravity took over at that one, and Gravity won that fight. Randy's saying, I think I just got whiplash. I love it. Kids asking, hey, the same air pressure for the ET Street SSs, Street Rs are very rare these days. Yeah. So in all the testing we did with the SSs, which I did Nitto Tri 5, Nitto Tri 5 R2, the latest one, and I did the SSs. The SSs were by far the best at the drag strip, and are the absolute best looking of the group. And I would say that, well, I don't know, the original Tri 5 is right up there with them. Both of those, the original Tri 5s and the SSs, all liked around 20 to 22 PSI. They did not like anything less than 20. Also, don't forget that is a 305 sized tire on a 10-inch wide rim. That is not on the factory 9.5-inch wide. I don't really recommend them, the 305s that is, for the 9.5-inch wide wheel, because in pattern testing, they would cup very easily, and you would have to run, I think I was at 26 or 27 PSI before I could flatten that pattern out. So on a 10-inch wide wheel, the pattern was still a little bit side bias, but you could get away with 22 pretty easily, 24 at the most. Now, if you've got an NA car, for you NA guys out there, 24, 26 is like prime for you guys with those tires. And other guys will swear by 22. We were running 22 in those tires and weren't having any issues. Now, the ones that gave me the biggest fit, and I never got any video of this because it almost just, it wasn't even worth you guys would have been bored to tears watching it, because it would have been 2 passes where I pedaled the car. The car hooked, but I was really pedaling it coming out of the hole. High 1.6 60 foots, actually mid 1.6 60 foots. And with that, though, the car went down the track just fine. I actually had it dead hook once with the Tri 5 R2s. After that, though, it was a complete debacle. When the track prep went away, those tires checked out immediately. So they're great for the street. They're great for just driving around. If you've got a Challenger and if you have a Charger and you have a 10.5-inch wide wheel or an 11-inch wide wheel, they fit that rim really well, but the 10s, not so much. So, the 10.5s, I should say, they don't fit that as well as the 11s. Sorry, my head's still thinking about the smaller diameter. So, anyway, that's where that is for those tires. Kind of went down a rabbit hole on that one. Sorry about that. Jordan's asking if I had any experience with flying ram tuning. I have not. Quick Brick saying, what up, brother? Revlon is looking good, my friend. What's up, man? Yep. Name change on Revlon is Chandelier now, because that's the proper stripper name for her now. So we've got Foxy right over here. Foxy's just kind of hanging out. We got Chandelier on the main stage, and Sierra is over here hanging out right here. What's up, Sierra? What's up, girl? 13's asking, how about Matt Hagan in Denver? RPM. Rain's Performance is who I would recommend up in Colorado. He actually has and had set the national record for the TBSS NA, and he's got a lot of really fast Hellcats up in that neck of the woods. He was one of Alex Pike's students. He's really good, really knows his stuff. Let's see. Tux is asking about the long part that spins in front when the engine's on. That is the supercharger. That is the snout. What you're looking at is the actual snout of the supercharger spinning. That is the thing that crams more air into the engine, which makes it go much faster. Makes a bunch of cool noises. So, getting back to it. So the topic tonight, for you guys that are just now getting in, is basically when fast isn't fast enough. And it's referencing the video that I put out of me running Nate's plum crazy purple colored modified red eye. That car went a 996 and I went a 1050. So it's basically illustrating what the difference is in what half a second looks like. Half a second, it doesn't sound like much. It's 1,000, and we go 1,001, 1,002, 1,003. That 1,000, that's your half second. But and you would think it'd just be like, and it's like you're right next to each other, like, it doesn't work like that. I mean, that car is up, gone, and out my life. That's basically at 130 miles an hour, you're covering that much real estate in half a second. That's how far ahead of me that car is. And it's hard to explain in real terms the difference between a low 10-second car and a mid 10-second car. Or I should say a low 10-second pass and a mid 10-second pass. And why it is so hard to capture that half second. The faster you go, the harder it is to capture that real estate. And to be able to show you guys and to put that. So for you guys that may not know, the shop is near Velocicito, and we've got a lot of Velocicito going on tonight. So it's a real pretty night. Finally, it's not raining, and the guys are heading out to start making some hits. So you may hear that in the background. Anyway, getting back to it. To be able to show you guys the difference between no doubt Chandelier's fast. I mean, a 1050 is a fast car. There's no question about it. And to see what it looks like when a fast car is beaten by a car that is, again, half a second faster is nuts. And that's a real street car. That car was driven to the track. And it's got to be made understood that that's what you're trying to capture. That running away from a car, running a 1050 is what you're trying to accomplish. It's a big ask to do. And so when you're talking about, well, I just want to pick up a couple of tenths. Well, a couple of tenths, when you're talking about cars that are already going this fast, if you've got a Scat Pack, what does it take? It's more than just picking up power. It's picking up power. It's picking up transmission tuning. It's having the right transmission tune that is going to work with the conditions that you're running the car in. with the right tire sizing. It's going to be everything married together, and that is what's going to get you that 2 or 3/10 improvement. And again, it's only relevant when you see the difference in person. And so that's why I was really glad to be able to get you guys that illustration. And yeah, I got him on the tree, but even though I got him on the tree, it wasn't by much. And again, we both had pretty decent trees. I can't remember what I was. I was like an 054, 094, something like that on that tree. And I think he was maybe a 150. So there might have been a 1/10 of a second difference in there. Like you saw though, I mean, I was not going to make the difference. But I also wanted to show you guys that to bring forth another part of this topic. I'm out there having a blast. My car runs on 93 octane. I just go to the gas station, put a little gasoline in it, hop in it, cruise to the track, AC blasting, jamming out, having a good time, get to the track, make some hits, eat a couple of hot dogs, and peace out, right? I don't feel like I need to build a 9-second car out of this thing. It's only half a second, right? Have you seen what half a second looks like when you go 130 miles an hour? Again, it's a lot more than just throwing a pulley on the car. It's a lot more than just putting a different fuel in the car. And that's whether you're naturally aspirated, supercharged, or what have you. The difference between where you're at now and what you think is fast is vast. And again, you don't think half a second is a lot. Oh, it's only half a second. We picked up half a second. Have you seen what half a second looks like? So anyway, 1320 saying no NHRA winner, funny car. Fast, I consider mid-10s. A super fun street car, I prefer 12s to 11s. Anything faster than mid-10s gets a little scary at my part. So let's talk about that for a minute. So last two Fridays ago, or 2 Tuesdays ago, or was it last Tuesday? Man, it's been a minute. Anyway, no, it was last Tuesday. Did the roll racing event at Houston Raceway Park. And one of the funny things about it was I hadn't roll raced, at least not like that, in a while. And what was fun is just doing it again. And so I won't really be doing it again, at least not with this setup, because it didn't really take too well to it. But I was running my good buddy Chris, and I tuned his car, and realistically, his car does make more power than mine. But what was funny is, and we're like, all right, this whole weight, because mine's a little bit lighter though than his, this whole weight thing's going to be over with from a roll. So we go through the beams on the first one, and I'm in second gear thinking that I'm going to hook, and I don't hook at all. It just flashes straight down to about 7,000 RPM. I've got to get completely out of it. As I'm getting completely out of it, Chris is having some traction issues, but not near as bad as me. He gets out on me, and I just cannot reel him in. It's just not going to happen. Oh, and it didn't data log. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So we come back around, decide to do it again. Got to run it back. Can't go out like that, right? And I'm pacing us, and I said, look, we're going to have to start off at about 40. And we're going to have to come through in third gear, where there's no way we're going to be able to hook in second gear. It just is not going to happen. And even though it may happen on concrete out on the street, it just is not going to hook in this environment because the drag strip, it's going to be slicker in that one area, and it's just not going to hook. So anyway, we get in the cars, pace this up to 40, and I'm in third gear. Light goes green. I stand on the gas, and it lights these tires up, and I just stayed in it. It was hazing the tires. It was probably trailing a little bit of smoke behind me. As they were spinning, they finally bit, which is one thing good about the Hoosiers. What they'll do is they'll break loose, but they don't get real chattery. They don't wheel hop. They don't do any of that stuff. I've had really good luck with Hoosiers lately. But it lights the tires up, and it's hazing them. It finally sits down, bites, and takes off. didn't really matter because he didn't spin, and he gets about another like this on me, and I'm just barely reeling him in, but there was no way. Once I hit the top of fifth gear, I wasn't going to be able to catch him at that point. We're already going through the traps. So the point of it is, every car has their strength and every car has their weakness, and it was just funny because I hit the gas, the car lights the tires up. Even on a third gear roll in, it just lights them up. What's funny is I was data logging that pass, and what's the interesting thing is that it looks like there was a shift in the data log, and from y'all's point of view, it goes up, like it looks a lot like my bald ass head. It goes up, around, and then when it pulls traction, as it loses traction, gains traction, and then comes up and takes off. So anyway, it was a very round curve where it lost traction, started catching traction, and as it was biting, the car was accelerating. But in that amount of time, the car was basically not really accelerating. It was accelerating, but not like it should. And there was just no way I couldn't gun him down. So anyway, I think my car went basically 129. Chris's car went 131 and change, with both of us kind of pedaling the things, pedaling the cars. So, but had a lot of fun though, no doubt about that. And the funny thing about it is both of our cars are literally as close to stock as you can get in terms of the actual tune, given the conditions. Like, given the conditions that we're running in with these hot temperatures, I'm just really not throwing any timing at them. So, a super like laid back tune, lots of fuel, 93 octane, and the cars did really well. So had a ball with that, but just wasn't used to the car blasting the tires loose like that. Chuck, thank you very much. I appreciate it, buddy. Saying long overdue. Thank you for helping me become a better muscle car driver with your technique advice in my manual RT Plus shaker. You're right, Pete. Thank you very much, man. I'm glad I could help. Yeah, it's just the main thing with that, buddy, is just practice. Thank you very much, by the way, for that. The main thing for that though is just practice. Basically, you think of so one of it's almost like it's cheating in a way, but so when I was a kid, you're gonna love this. So I worked for I cannot say the name of the company, but we made the drive shafts for the giant windmills, the wind generators. And God, it was this job that I picked up. Anyway, I was a parts driver. I built crates, fabricated crates, systems, shipping systems for these giant parts, as well as other parts for super huge diesel engines, as well as Cub Cadet tractors and a bunch of other stuff. Anyway, I had this Caterpillar forklift, and it was this big it was a huge turbo diesel Caterpillar forklift, and it had a throttle. It had two different throttle settings. You could set throttle at just let the throttle run, and you had a pedal that you would use to drive forward and drive back. It also had a regular throttle and a regular type of a clutch on the thing. It was like a dual. How do I explain this? It was basically like a dual control machine. Anyway, the thing made a whole lot of power, and it was a pneumatic truck too, which means that it had air tires. It had aired up tires instead of the hard rubber tires. It was basically a yard forklift. You guys are familiar with them. Anyway, one of the weird things about it though is you could throttle it up, and all you did was you would basically kick back on the pedal, and that's what would make it go forward. And if you went wide open throttle and happened to dump what would be the clutch, or just push down on the go pedal in this case, it would light the tires up. It would smoke the freaking tires. It's like, what the fuck? I've got a forklift that will smoke the tires. Almost wrecked it a couple of times. Anyway, Sorry, it's just the stupid stuff that you do when you're, in college and trying to make ends meet. When all I wanted to do is play rugby and that's it. So anyway, the point of this is that a lot of driving that a modern, I don't know, it's totally off on a tangent, but with the manual cars, the easiest way is as you're feeling that clutch engage, feeding the power in as you're feeding that clutch. That's kind of what I did when I was actually driving it for what it was worth. You just kind of set the throttle and you would feel the thing as it would engage and you just kind of throttle into it. It's the exact same thing, except instead of pressing down on the clutch in this case, with the car, obviously you're letting out in this way. So anyway, you have to think of the clutch controlling your acceleration rate, and the throttle is just there to accommodate that acceleration rate with torque. So, and the old trick that I used to use was just pretend like you're leaving from a stop sign. It's the same technique, just with a lot more throttle and a more rapid engagement of the clutch. Not necessarily dumping it, but anyway, I'm glad I helped. That means a lot. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. But yeah, it was, what the hell Caterpillar was it? It was oh crap. Anyway, I can't remember it, but God, I can't believe I didn't get fired. This is before they had the cameras out to the yard and everything else. It's just, anyway. Kobe's saying he's seen a YouTuber in her red-eye Charger destroy the bearings in her supercharger. How would that happen if it was stock? Man, in the manufacturing process, sometimes you just get a bad batch of bearings. It could be for any reason under the sun. It could have been bad cores for the needle bearings or for whatever else is going on in there. I don't know. I've only had, I know this is going to sound weird, but I've never personally, I know that Racer X had to, with his car, factory recall on, or replacement, I should say, for his blower, but I've never had the issue that a lot of these guys have had with their blowers. So, in fact, the only blower that I've ever seen fail was a Whipple that let go. So I would not consider that to be, it's not a guarantee that they're going to go bad. Again, it's just part of the manufacturing process. It could have been one bearing that was just bad from the factory. Let's see. Oh, Randy's saying years and years ago, ran a Hemi Superstock 70 CUDA, loud, nasty, stripped interior, etc. Low tins and one hell of a ride. I bet that would have been fun. Let's see. Oh, Lone Wolf is checking in. 72 Dodge Stepside Hemi swap with the AX15 5-speed 321 gear. Run pretty good. Ran a Chevy Cobra kit car. Truck's number one drag race app. I'm in the low 13, spinning like crazy. I bet that would be a fun truck. One of my favorite trucks, we had a 62 D100. If you Google silver D100, you'll see the truck, I think. Anyway, 62 D100 with a 6.1 and a NAG1 swap with 370 gears. And I'm the guy that did all the data logging on that car, or on that truck, I should say. Put a bass tune in the thing. Alex did the final tune on it. I just got the thing where it would run. Not that it really needed much help. Thing was a really good swap. TTS, I think, did the work. Anyway, it's been a little bit. That was the only one of like 2 cars, maybe 3 cars, that I was ever sad to see leave the shop. That truck is still to this day one of my favorite vehicles to drive. And with, I think that 6.1, I think on that dyno, it made 360 or 370 to the rear wheels. This is the stock 6.1 with a tune, long tubes. Which, healthy 6.1 to be sure, but what a sweetheart of a truck. So yeah, I'd have loved being able to get that thing down the track. Let's see, Randy's saying, my point was with the CUDA and running 10s was no joke. It was a serious race car for the time. We are definitely spoiled nowadays. Oh yeah, no question about it. And it wasn't that long. It wasn't that long ago where it was a serious race car. If you were running 11s, you had a serious race car. Look, make no mistake, 10s back then was a scary ass proposition. I mean, you're talking about suicide master cylinders, which is to say that it only has, one chamber master cylinder for some of those cars back then. But even without it, I mean, you look at even a low 11-second Fox body was a nasty ass car. I mean, that's not a street car at all. That would be a real racing car back in the day. So yeah, it wasn't that long ago when a low mid 11-second car was a straight up race car. So yeah, back then a 10-second car was, oh yeah, no, that thing's going to the track on the trailer. I mean, that's when a 10-second car would be dragging the front tires off the ground. I mean, that was a serious bit of artillery. And again, Chuck, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Again, saying I almost lost to an older Mustang 5.0 by staying in first gear too long, but as I was throwing the next gears, I remember the RPM sweet spot you taught me. Bye-bye, Mustang. Very good. I like it. I like hearing about that. Thank you. So saying everybody goes Whipple, but I think the E-Force kit comes with a whole lot more goodies. Well, it comes with that 2650 Maggie now, which is no joke. I mean, that thing is 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels capable supercharger. So yeah, I would say that I would go E-Force no matter what. It's such a clean looking install. Look, I'm not going to say anything negative about Whipple. They've done a really good job. I know that the Mustang guys do well. And look, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that was the blower to beat. But now things have changed a little bit. And in the world we live in, with just how fast technology can move us along, it's, the Maggies, I think, got the upper hand right now, but Whipple's got their 3.0, which may be a little bit better than the Maggie. So I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts to that, but I know that at least with the Dodges, we were having some issues with just general tuning, but a lot of times that wasn't helped at all by, some other issues with the software, some of the hardware too at the time. And the Maggies right now are just a little bit easier. I know that it's been about, a couple of months back, but there was a charger on the dyno, had a Maggie on it, 426, one of my cams, and let's see, stock manifolds, may have been a CAD delete, may not have been, on Korn making 966 on a tune that was fairly, I wouldn't say conservative, it was proper for the application. And on any dyno jet, that would have been about 1,050 horsepower to the rear wheels. So at least 1,025. So saying, yeah, my point exactly, for a positive displacement, it's all you could ask for and more. Yeah. I tell you what, so one of them, okay, so getting back to cars that I wish hadn't left the shop, right? I should put it a different way. Cars that I'm glad I got to spend a little bit of time with is a better way to put it. So I talked about the silver truck. There's a couple of Challengers that I really liked for some weird reason. I took a real shine to a 2014 Candy Stripe Challenger manual car. And Candy Stripe meaning it was white with red stripes. I freaking fell in love with that car, and for no real reason. It's not like I hadn't driven manual cars before, but something about that one was just real happy. And we put a supercharger on it, and it was a D1 standard intercooler, and it picked it up about 135-ish horsepower to the rear wheels. But that car should have had a little bit more aggressive tune under the curve, maybe a little bit more driver command torque, but I just really liked driving that car. That car was a lot of fun. It was neat to do data logs with. It was just a real happy car. But another one of the cars that I really liked is another 6-speed car. A gentleman had brought in a 5.7 car that was stock, except it had an E-Force kit. And one of the interesting things about that car, 6-speed car, one of the interesting things about that car, number one, was how clean it was. This guy, like, I don't know that I could keep a car as clean as this thing was. But it was, to drive this car was just so much fun. And the interesting thing about it was it felt as good as a 392 with just a little bit more bottom end torque down low. Kind of tilt the curve a little bit, just give a 392 a little bit more torque, but maybe a little bit less horsepower on the big end. That's what it was like to drive that car with that. And that was a Gen 1 Gen 1 E-Force kit. And that setup was just such a sweet setup. I mean, it's not something that you're out beating the hell out of, but you just kind of roll into the throttle, get out of it, shift, roll into the throttle, get out of it, shift, and I'm just data logging that thing. And Alex put a gorgeous tune on this thing. It was just sweet as a nut, and was just such a fun car to drive, and it was such a clean car, such a nice car. Signature Series 5.7. And that's one of the ones that I hated to see go because, and I would almost in a way put that one at the top of the list as far as, man, I wish this car wouldn't have like, if I could have bought the car and just kept it at the shop, I would have, because I would have probably sold 50 E-Force kits. At the time, we didn't really have a lot of 5.7s running through the shop. It just really wasn't what we did. We had a lot of Hellcats. It's like every Hellcat that was ever made, I think, came through that shop, figuratively speaking. And a lot of 392 stuff, but not a lot of 5.7s. And it was one of those cars where it was like, if I could just toss somebody the keys to this car and say, hey, let's go for a ride. I want to ride with you, though, and get your actual impressions of this thing as you drive it. The car felt like it had a big block in it. It was just a fun ass car to drive. Not anything that you're going to win like drag races with. Like, you're not going to go out and roll race the car. But it wouldn't get embarrassed necessarily. And the car just ran really well. And it was a shame to see it go, only because how can you convince somebody with a 5.7 that they need to go that route? Well, you put them behind the wheel, you give them a test drive and say, look, this is where you need to be in terms of dollars being spent on your car. This is the driving experience I think that you're looking for. Could be wrong. And then give them a ride in that ProCharge 392. Yeah, it's making 135 more horsepower to the rear wheels. It went from 380-ish, which is how it baselined, to, it was 530, so it actually made about 150 horsepower. Anyway, it baselined kind of low, but anyway, we ended up making 530 horsepower, give or take, to the rear wheels. It sounds like a lot, but it had the same hit down low that the Maggie on the 5.7 had, and it just would progressively make more power, and that just translated to wheel spin with that 392 car with the ProCharger. But again, it's literally two completely different ways of doing business, if you will. But man, it's just, you talk about fun and you talk about fast, and this kind of goes back into what we were talking about in terms of, how do they feel to drive, and what does it look like when a car runs a high 9 versus an exact 10.50? Yeah, the 392 would run away from that 5.7 car, but I think that day in and day out, with both of them being 6 speeds, it would probably be more fun driving that Maggie car. So, which is to say the E-Force car. Chuck, thank you very much. Saying here's a little bit more for Professor B, brother. I appreciate that very much. Thank you very much. Chuck saying, come on, guys and gals, help Professor B send some super chat love. Thank you very much. So saying B's always been there for the Hemis. His understanding in them is got to be through my build. Got it to be perfect spot where it should be through me, the baseline, and it took it from there. Very good, man. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Glad you're having fun with it. It's the main thing. Just make sure you're having fun. Practice. But when I say practice, don't beat yourself up. Play when you practice. Have fun when you practice. Enjoy what you're doing when you practice. I cannot tell you. I got Foxy sitting right back over here. By the way, funny story with that thing. It didn't get pulled over or anything. It's just trying to resurface the brakes in the shop. Doing a flapper wheel resurfacing of the rear brake rotors. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do type things. Do not do that. I'm not even going to tell you how that works, because if I told you, you'd try it and you'd come away with like you'd have a stub left, and I'm not even going to. I'm not joking, and I'm not going to tell you how I did it. But when you've got to practice, but play when you practice, and it's more important that you're having fun. If you're having fun, you'll pick up on things. If you're stressing yourself out when you try to go to practice some of the techniques on launching these cars and driving them, if you're too stern, it's like you'll break before you bend. Have fun with it. Enjoy yourself. Goof off. That's why you got the car to begin with, because it is fun. And I say all of this, and I give all of this to you because what happens is a lot of guys get real white knuckly. They get real, I've got to get it right. It's got to be right. It's got to be right. There's no such thing as right in this game. It's whatever feels right for you. Sometimes it takes you a minute to figure out what feels right. Get out there, have fun, play with it, laugh, joke, make mistakes. That's how you learn. And mistakes add character to your accomplishments. Without those mistakes, the accomplishments don't mean anything. You don't have anything to laugh about. And believe me, I got a lot to laugh about. Chuck's saying he's heard a lot about the E-Force, all good stuff. I like them a lot. They're real clean installs. Let's see. Tux is asking if I know Teslas very well. Well, sorta. I know them about as well as I can, but from a pretty significant distance. I'm familiar with P100, P100D, P100 Sport. I think there's one in there, and obviously the Plaid, which is getting a whole lot of looks. A little bit with the 3, not so much with the Y. So, Tux saying he likes the 3 because it makes your phone have a cool key to use. That's true. And it's got a Christmas light show. It does do that. It's for now. I'm not really going to be able to get into the electric car thing. I thought long and hard about this, y'all, and I am going to stick with what I got. At one point there was a little bit of a tug, if you will, to start looking in the direction of the electric cars. I recognize the power potential and just how fast they are. I also recognize that as these electric cars get better, power-wise, performance-wise, they're going to be the king of the hill, and that's just how it is. They will, from that perspective, for the street car guys, will make internal combustions, in terms of talking about power and performance numbers, obsolete. I mean, look at what the Plaid's done. And again, guys, you live in a world of big bank, take little bank. Most of your garden variety 9-second cars, most guys like to have a mid 9-second car, like a car that you can wave around a mid 9-second time slip or at your mid 9-second time slip. We're not talking about 999. We're talking about in cold weather running a 940 or 950. Most guys have at least $70,000 in that kit, maybe even $80,000, depending on the car that they started off with. That's a lot of money. And at that dollar amount, though, you're still another car away from buying a Tesla Plaid. So 70 to 80 grand, and you can walk the math back, get you a Mustang, Whipple it, mag it, whatever. You start running all the numbers back, you've got about 11 or 12 grand in the blower, the super, this, the da-da-da-da. Anyway, long story short, you can see where this goes. It adds up really quickly. You end up with like 4 or 5 grand in transmission, axles, drive shaft, headers, the whole bit. To really get it right, you'll end up with a substantial amount of money tied up in that thing. And you could do 2 of those cars for what you could buy a Tesla for. I understand that, and the Tesla will probably walk around both of those cars. That's how fast some of these cars are. So it's not really my cup of tea, though. And I'm not all about having the fastest car at the drag strip. I really like Chandelier. And I would rather have, put it like this, I would rather have a paid off Chandelier running 1050s for the next 50 years of my life than worry about what the next 9-second electric contraption is going to be that, number one, I can't afford, and number two, may cost too much to keep on the road if you fall in love with the thing once batteries have to be replaced. So you have a very high initial cost, and then what do you do when the battery gets shitty? Like, do you have to buy another $20,000 battery pack? I got a problem with that. Like, I got a big problem with that. Like, that's the, okay, so I'll put it to you like this. This is the way that I have to internalize that. It is the equivalent of blowing up your car as you have to replace that battery pack at $16,000. Like, if this thing ventilated the block, I would have to put a new engine in it to the tune of, I don't know, it's going to cost you $5 grand for the short block, another $5 grand for the labor, not including any fix that you have to do along the way. So about 10 grand. These batteries cost $16,000 or more. So it's the equivalent of blowing up your engine and blowing up your transmission on the same pass with one of these electric cars. And apparently it's coming for all of them. And so, I don't know, that's the expense that kills me. I would be gung-ho for it if I wanted a deep 9-second car. But again, it's that one weird, just over the horizon cost. I'm like, oh, hell no. I'll freaking put a different set of injectors in this thing and brew my own E85 before I have to deal with that. And again, so appreciate your kind words, man. Saying exactly, put it in the fun spot where I can enjoy it all the time. Been a blast. Don't worry about number. It runs good. Puts a smile on my face. I'm a happy camper. Exactly. And that's the thing. Dude, it's miles per gallon with these cars, not, miles per gallon. It's how does it make you feel when you drive it? It's funny. Let me give you an example of when a number doesn't really translate well. So cars that are fun to drive. I had my C5 Z06, and that car didn't make any torque, had a big cam in it, LS6, a little bit of head work, Veraram cold air intake, all the good stuff on that car. And it would run like an 11.2 at 126 miles an hour, 127 miles an hour. It mile an hour really well, but it just never really was all that fun to drive. It was fun sniping Hellcats on the highway, because I mean, all of its business was managed on the back half of that track. So you can imagine the mile an hour, on the street from a roll. I think it was just a monster. So, but it just wasn't fun to drive. It wasn't fun to own, more to the point. It should have let the car stock. It was a better car when it was stock than it was when it was modded. And so, yeah, horsepower numbers and all of that, but it's a driving experience. And although I'm impressed with some of the feats that people are able to get away with when it comes to making all this power, that's all fine and good. But what I notice and what I come to find is I'm a lot more interested in the driving experience as a whole. And that is it exciting to drive? But the main thing is I just don't want a car that's trying to kill me all the time either. So there's that. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. Chuck's saying getting a super stock in a year. I'm sure it's going to be a bit different than my RT Shaker manual, but I know I will be ready. Fun car, by the way. Shane saying no more 14 Challenger 5.7. Unfortunately, I'm in a 2010 Inferno Orange Camaro SS. Still a good car. Now I plan on coming back to Mopar in a year or two with a manual Scat or Auto Hellcat. Missed the Mopar side already. Yeah, I can kind of understand that. Dude, Camaros are fun. 5th gen Camaros are a lot of fun. I love those cars. But I get it. Bigger car, a little bit more comfortable. That's why I've got one. And I'll be honest with you. With the way that my car is set up, just a pump gas 309 gear car, it's on par with a really well put together, basically stock tune, ZL1. I mean, all of these cars, the good, fun street package cars are all in that 1050 range. All in that 1050 at about 130 miles an hour. That's the range where it can scare you, but it isn't necessarily trying to kill you. It's there to remind you that it can kill you if it decides it wants to, but it won't. It's kind of like having a pet cheetah or something. They're fun to look at, they purr, they do all this stuff, and then they can eat you. So that's kind of like having that 1050 car that runs 130 miles an hour. It won't kill you, but you know that it could. You start getting into the 9s. That's when things can get spooky really quickly. And the weird thing about it is it will lull you into thinking that everything's cool. And then the one time you need to get on it to get around somebody and it blows the tires off the rims, that's when you find out real quickly that you're dealing with something that is a little bit more aggressive than what you may have been, I should say a little bit more aggressive than you bargained for. I'll give you a perfect example of this. Some of you guys know the story, some of y'all don't. For you guys that do know this story, just ride along with it. For some of you guys that don't. So Racer X's Excessive, his Bravo package Charger. I drove that car to Dallas to go deliver it to him. And it's an E85 car. And one of the things that it's kind of a thing I like to do is I like to see how awesome of fuel economy I can get out of a car. I love the go fast stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm also kind of an efficiency nerd too, and I like to just try to find that exact happy, perfect place where the car just gets the best optimal fuel economy. It's kind of a trick you do with aircraft too. Is the chart exactly right? Optimal cruising speed, and all best cruising speed, all that. Anyway, that's what I'm doing with his car. And keep in mind, this is a double pulley car on E85, stock manifolds, cat delete, basically your garden variety, killer chiller, twin pump setup, basic garden variety 950 car. And so let me explain to you how fast a 950 car is. I'm cruising down the road and I'm creeping up on 20 miles per gallon. Now, I'm like holding this thing dead set at like 73 or 74 miles an hour. That's about where the car seemed to like life the most. And I'm kind of playing with it. I'm kind of lowering and raising and trying to get this thing. I wanted to try to crest 20 miles per gallon. Gives me a call and says, well, how stable is it under hard acceleration? And I said, well, I mean, it's as stable as it's going to get. I'm on drag radials. So, I said, it's fairly stable. And he goes, well, I'd like some feedback, because he was planning on doing some high-speed runs with it, Texas 2K, half-mile stuff, things like that. Said, okay, no problem. So at 70 miles an hour, I just roll the thing into wide open throttle. And with drag radials, that car, and I'm making just real slight adjustments, and I'm just, this is not my first rodeo with these things, and you never, I see guys hit it, they're just like this, and dude, when anybody that's ever done this before, we're all just real, like almost, it looks like we're falling asleep with it because we've done it so many times. We're just real minor corrections. The car is just kind of skating along, and it has the tires lit up through about 140 miles an hour, which pissed me off because it ruined my video game of trying to get the perfect 20 miles per gallon hit. I never did capture 20 because of that. But the interesting thing is, though, is that car was hazing the tires for as long as I had my foot in the throttle. And that's not necessarily a good thing. That is a lot of power. It's about 1,000 horsepower at the crank, basically 820 to the rear wheels. On a drag radial with a car that has a torque curve that is as flat as a friggin' picnic table. That is a completely different level of fast. And it's a level of fast that a lot of guys don't like. In fact, it's funny, we would have guys say, I want all this, I want that, I gotta have that, give me that package. They get the package, and we would take bets, like when are they gonna come back and say that they're selling the car? Do you know anybody that would wanna buy it? Whatever. The walking around average amount of time was about 6 months. Usually 4 months and like 7 months. So most of the guys would hold off a little bit, but you'd start getting phone calls at about 4 months. The guy's like, I just can't control this thing. This thing is too fast. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I had an intro so we had a guy do a Bravo package, and I did a driver intro, which is where I would have the guy sit next to me, walk him through what it feels like to drive the car now, because there is a vast difference from a car that, from the factory would run 1080s, 1090s, depending on, where you live and your density altitude. But there's a vast difference between 1080s and 1090s and 940s. Like a stock Hellcat versus one like Excessive, which would run 940s, 950s, and really 960s in any air. It is unimaginably different. And it wasn't uncommon, but this one in particular that I'm thinking of was just like he looked like he had lost, like his complexion changed after that initial get acquainted drive. And I said, yeah, you're living on drag radials now. This is no longer a viable street tire car. You try to run this thing on street tires, you'll be in a bad way. And that was a car that had the work done somewhere else. We finished up a package, tuned it, got it set up for him, and sent him out in the world with this thing. And I think that one set the record for somebody wanting to get rid of it the quickest, which was like 3 months later. He's like, I'm not feeling this anymore. But that's what Hellcats do. Yeah, you can make a lot of power with a stroker and an F1 and all this other stuff. But the way that these Hellcats hit down low, it is a completely different car. And fast isn't always fun. Faster isn't always better. And, we've done like 392s with F1s, 392s with D1s that were a lot more manageable, a lot safer to drive than some of the big power cars. But or I should say the big power Hellcats. But I guess at the end of the day, it's just there's such a big difference in power, performance, driving experience with some of these big package positive displacement superchargers. Texas liking Teslas. I don't know. A lot of guys are kind of iffy about that autopilot thing. Chuck's asking, are Nittos that come on the Superstock good for street performance? Yes, there actually are. RT Live Channel said that they are better than Mickey Thompson's for street and track. I would agree with that. The NT05 is actually a really good tire. I mean, hell, with Ray's Demons, we were pulling the front tires off the ground with those tires. So, and that was a stock Demon. So, yeah, no, they're a really good tire. I wouldn't make the switch away from them to a Mickey Thompson in that particular size. The problem with NT05s is that they just don't make them in like a size that fits on a 20-inch rim. At least not for the ones that we're looking for. They might make a 305. What do they make? I forget what they make. It's like an oddball size, but they don't make a 305. What is it? 305, 35, 20. They just don't make one. And if they did make one, that would be the tire that I would use as my daily setup. So I'm just still trying to figure out why they don't do that. So saying they're great on the street, not bad for the track, but I had more luck with the little drag pack. Yeah, and really, I mean, if you're going for, you know, the times, then the drag pack's the way to go. So saying I got the Tri-5 R2s. Decent enough tire. Like I say, they're great on the street. I like them on the street. The only thing I don't like about the Tri-5 R2s is the fact that they do run big. You know, I had to make some adjustments to my fender wells to run those tires where I didn't have to do that with the regular Tri-5 or the SSs. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. But again, they do fairly well in wet weather, and I've yet to really have in terms of just being a tire and doing tire things, I haven't had a complaint with those tires. Jerry's saying he's got a 2020 Challenger RT 20th anniversary edition and just finished a road trip. Why do all stock Challengers seem so squirrely in the rain at 70 miles an hour and above? All three of mine have been like this. Part of it could be the alignment. These big old cars actually have a fairly aggressive alignment profile. I think it's basically almost a degree up front, about half a degree in the rear, which can make it a little bit squirrely. Part of it could also have to do with tire selections, but yeah, I think this has more to do with alignment than anything else. But anyway, guys, if y'all have not had a chance to check out the video, it's really only like a minute long. There's really nothing to it, but yeah, if you've ever wanted to see what the difference between a high 9-second and a mid 10-second car looks like, check it out. It'll definitely be enlightening. Kurt's asking, what is my opinion of glass pack mufflers? All a glass pack is a big resonator by today's standards. There's nothing wrong with them. In fact, they're not bad at all in terms of flow. I mean, it's just a straight through can. The only real difference with glass packs is that they just don't have the diameter. They don't have more of the muffling area that, say, a MagnaFlow would have. I mean, if you were to just make a MagnaFlow's can smaller, wouldn't it be it would basically be a cherry bomb, basically. So, I don't know. The glass packs, they're not bad. Provided that you're not running one of the little bitty ones and running an X pipe. The problem that you have, a lot of guys have, is they do away with a lot of the muffling. Actually, and by the way, to that point, the stock mufflers on Hellcats, they're basically glass packs because they're about this big around and the inlet is about that big around. It's like basically a 2 3/4 or 3-inch inlet to 2 3/4 inch inlet. And the can itself is only that big. There's nothing to it. So this more or less has glass packs, or yeah, it's basically got glass packs and no resonators. So I'm wanting to talk. Anyway, as long as you've got one long enough that it actually shuts it up a little bit and takes some of the shrillness out of having an X pipe, then you'll be in good shape. Oh, X is saying that his drive's a little bit too, he's almost too confident with his in the rain. Yeah, if you go and if you watch the video of what I was doing, I did a 4-part on the Tri-5 R2s. One of them was the look of the thing, which I'm still not, that tire. The tire is almost perfect, but it's lacking in just the things that are like pet peeve for me. Anyway, the wet driving video. If you notice in that video, I am in the left-hand lane passing cars as I'm going down the highway. And that's on those Tri-5 R2s. I didn't at any point in time feel like they were performing any differently than my stock tires would. So take that with a grain of salt, but if you go back and watch the video, that's the one thing that nobody commented about. I'm like, somebody's gonna pick up on this little Easter egg that I'm literally in the left lane passing people up, and you can see tire spray coming off of everybody's tires. I didn't have any issues with them, so I completely understand getting a little bit overconfident with those things. Rusty's saying that he's shooting for 500 horsepower out of his 383 stroker. What heads do you recommend, iron or aluminum? It will have a turbocharger. So I'm guessing is it a 5.7 with it going for a 383? Or are you talking about, because you're asking about aluminum heads, it almost sounds like you're building a Chevy. A 500 horse 383 you can almost do by accident with a set of AFR head. If we're talking about a Chevy block, AFR heads, RPM air gap, Holley 750, set of 1 3/4 long tubes, and a cam that's going to be like a 234, 240, intake center line of 108, in a lobe separation angle of about 110. I mean, that's basically 500 at the crank. Put that engine on any engine dyno, it'd probably be like 520, 515-ish, like that. So, just stick with about 10.5 to 1 compression. It's a wedge motor, so you can't go nuts with compression ratio, but, 10 would be the same. 10.5 wouldn't make any real difference, but that would be my combination. If I was putting one together for Sierra, that's what I would do. And you would be in good shape there. Tux has asked, and you do not need a turbo for that either. I mean, if you're going to run a turbo, I just put a turbo on that combination and it'll make, another 150 horsepower. Don't worry about changing up the cam. That cam would be just fine for that. All stock, thank you very much. Saying, what up, Master Mopar? So tell us a little bit about your background. Are you in marketing or sales? Both, actually. I have done both. I've done straight marketing. I've done straight sales, which is what I prefer. I like it because it is a fluid career. I don't have to necessarily be an expert, but it's a field where you become an expert at becoming an expert. So, but yeah, marketing, sales has been my background, for most of my entire professional life, and it's been good, and I really enjoy it a lot. So the main thing about sales, it's never about the product, it's about your team, and it's about the folks that you're working with, and it's about the competition. I'm extremely competitive by nature, so I am able to exercise that competitive nature in mine with my career as well, which adds a little bit of flavor to it. I have a fantastic team that I work with, so we get along great. We definitely don't let each other slide. So we're constantly talking a lot of shit. But yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, I've been in sales or straight marketing for most of my professional career. that didn't have something to do with car stuff. Let's see. But I've also been actually it's sales management, and then straight marketing. I think the most direct reports I've ever had was, including assistants, would have been 15 direct reports. Tux is asking, do you know the all-new Jeep Wrangler 392? Yes, I do, and I still have a big question mark about that thing. Very expensive, and I don't know how well it's going to be received. Oh, Rusty's going to be beefing up that Power Glide. Good deal. All stock, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Rusty's saying, yes, it was a 350. Very cool. So saying he watched that review, that's why he went with them. Yeah, I mean, they're really good tires. I mean, for being a tire, they're good. And if you go back and watch the 30 hit, the 40 hit, the 50 hit, the 60 hit that I did with them, they hooked fine. They did really well as a daily setup type of a tire. So, I mean, from that point of view, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. It's just the look of the thing. And they're about a quarter, honest to goodness, they really are a little bit over a quarter of an inch too wide. If you've got a Challenger and you're running the 305s, you may run into some issues. So that's the only reason why I had any beef with them. Other than that, they're good. So saying aim for 500 and you'll end up with close to 6 to the wheels if you're going with a turbocharged. Yeah, for sure. Royce is saying, thank you. So it's going to be in a sleeper 4-door 65 Biscayne. The blog is at the machine shop now. It should be fun. So saying I've had a few 350s for our trucks. Hopefully it's not the Vortec one. I have not had the best of luck with them. Royce, I'm ripping out that 283 for sure. Ken, thank you very much. Asking, would you tune a red eye differently for consistency for brack racing than for maximum time? Yeah, big time. So, firstly, there is no such thing, and you almost have to think differently when you're talking about tuning. There is no such thing as a maximum amount of power that you get out of the car. It is, when you're doing it right, it is what is the most appropriate tune that I can put on the car that will safely attain a horsepower number, or that I can at least put on the car if I'm not looking for a goal here for a number. What is the tune that will get me the best result with the safest, most conservative amount of timing that I can throw at it? And all of that has to do with the fuel that you run. If ever there was a car, and this just infuriates me, because I know the tune, and any of you guys that have gone in and looked at the tune of a Demon or a Red Eye, they're identical, will know what I'm talking about. And if you've seen that tune, then you may already be familiar with the Hellcat factory tune. Why, oh why, does the Red Eye not have flex fuel capability? It is, or the Demon or any of them, it is beyond my ability to understand and reason through why that car does not have an inferred logic, which is to say it uses the O2 sensors. Why it wouldn't have the capability to have an inferred logic E85 protocol in its operating system. Because the Red Eye is, and I don't mean this the wrong way, but the Red Eye is disappointing for a lot of folks if they run a stock Red Eye against this chandelier back here. Because a stock Red Eye will get beat, and it'll get beat in a way that a car that is advertised to make 800 horsepower shouldn't get beat by this thing back here. And that is, it will get out on chandelier, and then chandelier comes around and wins. That doesn't happen when you make 800 horsepower on an advertised 707. Shouldn't anyway. And yes, I know that she's got a gear, and yes, I know she's been breathed on by yours truly, but the reality is that it shouldn't be that way. And when you understand that I'm not even throwing timing at it at those air charge levels, it's even more annoying. So the reason for that, talk about taking forever to get to the point, right? The reason for that is that the Red Eye, the Demon, etc., that tune has no timing in it. And it has no timing in it because it's got so many heat nannies, because that 2.7 is less efficient. It's got significantly less timing, a lot more heat nannies, and it's just it drives me nuts, okay? When you convert that car to E85, it is night and day difference. That car will go from running, I don't know, 1080s to 1080s. One of the import guys getting after that thing sounded healthy too. It'll go from running 1080s, 1090s to 10.1s with the right tune and the right person, tickling the ivory, so to speak. So, big difference there, and that is an appropriate tune for that car on E85. So you're not throwing the sauce at it, you're just tuning it appropriate to the fuel quality. I can tell you that a Red Eye with a tune just on 93 octane is, you can get a little bit out of it. You can get more out of it by playing around with some of the heat based nannies that you're going to run into, but it's almost not even worth it, especially if you've got a 309 car. It's just like, put a drag pack on it, take it to the track, and have a good time with it. Again, you can get more out of it with a tune, but it's not going to be a lot. Really, it's going to be more in transmission tuning than anything else. So don't worry about what the engine tune is, because that's not where you get your gains. It's all, and I mean, I would say 80% of the gain that you get is going to be in that trans tune. So, I guess to answer the question, do you tune it any differently? No, you don't. The right tune is going to make the right amount of power, and it's always going to be consistent. I'll put you like this. Go back and watch the video of me racing Nate. That car, modified Red Eye, will go that number like clockwork every time down the track. So, I mean, we did it. That was the hot lap, and he backed up a 9.9. Let's see, it went 9.96. He backed up the 9.96 with a 9.97. I went a 10.50 with a 6. And I went a 10.50, I think, with a 7. You guys with the app, just look up 1122. That's my car number. Just look up car number 1122. It'll tell you exactly what the passes were and what they looked like. So, Rusty's asking if I recommend the Holley EFI Sniper. I've never played with it that much. We had a Chevelle come by the shop, and I didn't mess with it. Alex messed with it, but it was in like all the self-learning mode. And I mean, they're not bad. They're pretty decent for what they're worth, but I don't know that I'm just a huge fan of it. I mean, a well-tuned carburetor will get you all you need. So it's kind of hard to, I don't know, it's kind of hard to justify it, but it just depends on what you're going to use it for. Oh, Rusty's 350 is just a 4-bolt early 90s block. Nice. Ken saying it falls on her face after the 8th. Yeah. And the reason for that is that 2.7 generates heat like you would not believe. And that's the reason why. I mean, they are a monster through the 8th. In fact, whenever I would race White Mare's dad's car, when it was stock, we had a race, and he won the race, by the way. Had a little bit, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he won the race fair and square. Got out on me on the launch. I had a little bit of tire spin, and I was on my way to getting around him, and I mean, he got me. And it's a really good race because we were literally, like, he won by about, I don't know, 6 inches maybe. I mean, it's just literally went through the traps at the same time. But I didn't know what I was going to do with that car through the 8th mile. I mean, that car, they are just so strong through the 8th. They are out like if my car runs a 155 60 foot, his car would run a 152 or a 151. I mean, that's in the 60 foot, it's like it's hundreds of a second. In the 60 foot, that's a significant difference. So yeah, he would be out on me regardless of what I was up to. Let's see. Oh, so I think some might be responding to the Holly said never tried them out. A little more than I'm willing to spend. If you're going big, it might work well. Yeah. He said he's stuck with the Edelbrock 650 and jet him if needed. So I don't know if you guys saw the video. I did kind of it's not really a tutorial at all. It was just me showing carburetor tuning on Sierra. It's an Edelbrock 650 AVS. And what I did with that, so to give you an idea, that 650 AVS would be a little bit light for, I think, a 383, and mild 383 would be pretty good. But you definitely have to rejet the secondaries. And I'm running, and probably you'd have to put new primary. I'm going to have to rejet it. Maybe, I don't know. Depends on the cam profile. Anyway, yeah, I went with accelerator pump at the most aggressive setting. It's really, even with that, it's still really not exactly enough, but I'm at the most aggressive springs on the primaries, the factory jetting on the secondaries, and it's the ABS2, so it's annular discharge. It's got really good throttle response. And I mean, this 400 small block, it's a very, I mean, I might have a mild cam in it. It's got 441 heads, so they're not the most awesome heads in the world, still big chamber, smog type era heads, but it makes a ton of torque. And I mean, all the party's over by 4,500 RPM, but I mean, this thing will fry a set of tires. I mean, this thing's a lot of fun to drive. I mean, it's the most fun you can have under 60 miles an hour, so, or up to 60 miles an hour. A lot of fun, man. I love driving this truck. I need to get this thing out. Allstock, thank you very much, man. Mr. B, question 2. On the Hellcat, would you unlock the trans 1 to 4 gears or 1 through 6? I have a coupe Mustang with 165 AFR heads and a B cam. Hey, would a 347 be worth doing? So the first question, would I unlock the trans? If you're talking about unlocking the torque converter, no. In fact, my torque converter is factory lockup settings in the Hellcat, and it's also factory, still factory lockup 1 through all gears for all the cars that I've messed with. The only time I mess with the lockup protocol in the transmission is if you're talking about a higher stall converter. In that case, yeah, I would definitely unlock it for gears 1, 2, and maybe even 3. But after that, I would still recommend locking that converter. And he's got a coupe Mustang 165 AFR, is probably the best head in the world for a small block Ford. Windsor's, do you think a 347 is worth doing? Man, how do I answer that? Because I would initially say no, I don't. With a B cam and 1.7s, the 302 with 165s is going to be kind of a garden variety at the crank 365, 375 horse motor. It is a lot of fun to drive. I know the combination extremely well. If you don't have 1.7s on it, put 1.7s on it. You need something that's going to get those valves off the seat really quickly. The cam that you have, the B cam, is an old crane cam, crane derived cam, and those lobes are lazy by design. I would recommend a set of 1.7s. And upgraded set of push rods, and you'll be in good shape with that. That's the combination that I ran, and I loved that combination. With all stock parts on the car, including stock catalytic converters, that car can run 1240s at 107 to 108. So it is what it is, and that's on a set of the old BFG drag radials on a set of welds. So, but I even had the factory air box, didn't have the horn, but had the factory air box, factory cold air going into an untouched Cobra intake with a ported Cobra lower, B-cam 1.7s, shorty headers, and after that it was all stock exhaust. So, stock the cats also. Fun combination, real fun. Now, 347. So if you switch to a 347, let me tell you what you're going to be getting for a 347. You will have significantly more torque down low. Keep the 165s. Go with a cam that looks a lot like this. It would be an intake center line of about 108 or 109. I would prefer to see it at 109 in this case. But intake center line of 109. You would be looking at intake duration of about 224, 226, exhaust duration of about 230, and lobe separation angle of, say, 110-ish, 110, 112, right in that range. That coupled with a lift of, say, 510 on the intake, maybe 515 on the exhaust, but then run 1.7s on it to get to like the 542, 550 range. Check coil bind on the heads. They should be good. You might have to get a little bit better. No, you probably won't. I'm running the same 180. I'm running AFR 185s on Foxy, and it's the same springs from like 20 years ago, and they work fine with an F-cam and 1.7s. Long story short, you look to pick up about 50 horsepower and about 50 foot-pounds of torque with that 347. Now, if you're asking me, is it worth it? I don't know if it's really worth it. But I will tell you that it will completely change the complexion of that car. I like 347s. They're a lot of fun to drive. Again, this is a 351 car. It, in essence, be very similar to what I have in this thing. Again, but I'm running an F-cam with 1.7s. The cam that I described to you be a little bit better than this F-cam. And it would also depend a little bit on one other thing, and that is, if you're going, by the way, if you're going to go carbureted with it, go on a 110. If you're fuel injected, run that at about a 112 lobe separation angle. You're going to absolutely have to have 30-pound injectors for that too. Just saying. What else is there? Hopefully that answers your question and gives you an idea of what to expect. Tobias is in, got the arm flex, I like it. So saying I really like the Pro Form from Brawlers. BM saying, your thoughts on 21 ZL1 versus Hellcat, both auto from a roll 40-ish. It would be real close. So I'll give you a really good example of this. My car, the way it sits right now, with the gear, versus a ZL1 with a good drag pack and a trans tune, so a little bit of a tune, are, for lack of a better way of putting it, identical in terms of mile per hour and ET. Where the ZL1, although it's making less power, is lighter and a bit more aerodynamically. It's just set up to be a little more aerodynamically than the Challenger, which is like a brick. And I know this because George had his at the track last night, and if I went a 10.50, he'd go a 10.48. And if I went 129 and a half, he'd go 130. I mean, they're within inches of each other going through the traps. So stock for stock, from a roll, I'd almost have to give it to the ZL1, only because I think the ZL1 would be a bit more efficient with the power that it was putting down. But I'll tell you that it won't be that far off. So I don't think the ZL1's, I just can't see it just up and running away from the Hellcat. It may put a couple of links on the Hellcat or the Hellcat may give it a fit on the hit, and then the ZL1 may reel it in for a minute with them being very similar. It'd be a really good race. The only way to find out is to get them out there and do it. So, but good question. Like I say, I know our cars, I mean, I kid you not, the way they sit right now is identical. It's whoever gets out on who is going to win the race. When you're that close, look, I'll put it to you like this. If I were to show you his time slips and my time slips, you'd be like, I don't know which one's different. That's where I'm getting at. That car weighs 600 pounds less than mine does, though. Let me put that, or 500 pounds, I should say. Rusty's saying, I was also thinking of putting my Quadrajet that I have. They are great carbs if tuned right. There's nothing wrong with a Quadrajet. I know a lot of guys have a lot of beef with Quadrajet, and if you're a Holly guy, you're a Holly guy, and you're a Holly guy for a lot of reasons. But Quadrajets, I know Quadrajet. You can make plenty of power with a Quadrajet, just the same way you can make plenty of power with a Carter. And they're all good toilets. It's just the idea is some are better at transitional throttle, some are better at wide open, like a Carter, like the Edelbrock is a Carter basically. And Quadrajets are really good at transitional throttle. In other words, tip-in throttle response can be really good. The new Edelbrock ABS2 is really good in that respect. But at wide open throttle, they just don't flow the way that a Holly does. And a Holly is really good at flowing a lot of air and a lot of fuel on the big end. They look really good on a dyno, but sometimes they're not the greatest to live with. Chuck said he drove a buddy of his 71 Chevelle SS LS6. That's a fun car to drive. Was a cool classic muscle experience. Fries the tires easy, of course. Kobe's saying I did the ZL1 race a week ago and won by a nose to 130. That's about how I would figure it. It's a lot of times it's just who gets out first, man. I mean, they're very similar in a lot of respects. You know, power to weight is one of them. So they're going to be close. I can tell you though, and this pains me to say because I actually like ZL1s quite a bit. I know I'm on record as saying and panning the C6, or the Gen 6 Camaro. I like ZL1s a lot. I really wish they came from the factory with a better blower. I think that's a travesty. Because on a drag strip, I know we don't all live on a drag strip, but at the drag strip, ZL1 versus tire for tire, by the way, you need to put them both on a drag pack. The ZL1's not going to want to have anything to do with a Hellcat in that environment. But you get them on the street where you can kind of even up some odds a little bit. And it's going to be a very close race. Rusty said he got lucky because he got his Biscayne for $100. Sat since '77. Goodness gracious. Yeah, so saying he sees a lot of people on the street with Quadrajets, just not a lot at the track. Most of the time, the guys at the track are going to be running Hollies. Orlando saying, hello, got the arm flex, I like it. Oh, Kobe saying his buddy was spinning and he wasn't. Well, that can make up the difference. What, see, Russ is saying, what about Edelbrock 700 cc's? Edelbrock 700 CFM. Yeah, and so saying you go with the Thunder Series or a Proform 750. Yeah, I mean, any of the Brawler 750 would be good. The Summit 750 isn't half bad. Any of the Holly derivatives are gonna be good. They're not gonna suck. The Edelbrock is easy to tune, in my opinion. The only thing that, I mean, it kind of sucks that you got to pull the thing apart to get to the jets for the secondaries, but I mean, if you're building something that's going to be just a flat out hot rod, any of the Holly 750s are going to do really well. Is that the new electric Hellcat? No, parts of it are electric. The starter's electric. The AC motor is electric. But it does not have electric steering. It still has the hydraulic steering, a little bit better feel. So saying had a lot of luck with Proform, super easy to get set right, but the Thunder Series I think has much better sound, real choppy. Very cool. And with that, guys, we are coming up on 2 hours, so I got to jump off of here. Y'all, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out with me. It means a lot. Couldn't do this without you. Love each and every one of y'all. And I got to say it, if you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Ray, Missy, love you, brother. And with that, we are going to wrap this up. Y'all have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Be careful out there, and we will see y'all on the next one. Mine or might not be a Tuesday show, because if they're going to be running drag racing, I will absolutely be there. But with that, I am out. Y'all have a great one. That's a wrap. Adios.